The Ferengi Empire had no idea that brutally murdering an innocent little human girl would awaken the human race's most horrifying weapons, long-dormant titanic war beasts from ancient Earth, bred for one purpose, to utterly annihilate anything threatening humanity's survival. Jake Brown and his family lived on Zalos Prime, capital of the sprawling thousand-system Ferengi Empire that dwarfed Earth's minor space presence. He was the best mechanic in the alien megacity Kaldis, fixing machines that baffled Ferengi engineers. But that didn't matter when a hovercar crashed into a Ferengi shrine, igniting a xenophobic riot targeting the helpless human quarter. Lily, Jake's 6-year-old daughter, was shot in the head by Indus, a fanatical alien purity party member, as her mother Maria screamed. Humans and aliens brawled in the streets as Jake raced home, only to find Indus gloating over Lily's corpse. "Not so superior now, alien filth. Go back to your misbegotten mudball," Indus crowed. Jake lunged at him in anguish, but the Ferengi casually gut-shot him. "This isn't over, scum," Indus warned, as he left Jake bleeding next to his daughter's body, his wife splattered with blood and inconsolable. Little did that murderous alien realize that killing an innocent human child would have devastating consequences beyond his feeble imagination. Jake and Maria, in their all-consuming grief and rage, would travel back to Earth to unleash the human race's most terrifying weapons, gigantic warbeasts from ancient times, bred for the sole purpose of annihilating humanity's enemies. Those mighty monsters had been lying dormant for millennia. But now, these continent-sized horrors would awaken from their slumber to wreak unimaginable vengeance upon the Ferengi Empire for the death of one little girl. The Ferengi had foolishly poked the slumbering dragon of humanity's wrath, and they would soon learn that when you murder a human child, the human race's retribution is more terrible than 1,000 exploding suns. Jake woke with a start in a bright hospital room, wincing as he shifted in bed. He glanced down to see white bandages wrapped around his gut, a dull ache throbbing beneath them. Maria sat beside him, her face puffy and eyes bloodshot from crying. "They cremated her. They wouldn't let us bury our own daughter," Maria said, voice cracking. "Ferengi law. Only Ferengi get proper burials." She let out a bitter laugh. "And we're expected back at work tomorrow, like nothing happened." Jake clenched his fists, knuckles whitening as he struggled to sit up. His face contorted in pain but also hardened with cold purpose. "Maria, listen to me," he said, grabbing her hand. "Pack a bag. Grab whatever you can carry. Go to the Earth Embassy and request emergency asylum. Don't tell them why." "What are you going to do?" Maria asked, worry creasing her brow. Jake swung his legs over the side of the bed, hissing as his stitches pulled. "What I have to. I'll meet you on Earth." He kissed her hard before limping out of the room, mind racing. An hour later, Jake crouched in the shadows of the Kaldis spaceport, eyeing the older model Ferengi freighters in their hangars. He'd worked on these ships before. He knew their security systems. He knew which ones had been decommissioned, but not yet scrapped. Gritting his teeth, Jake forced a maintenance door and slipped inside the darkened hangar. He made his way to a small freighter, the Zorlax, and hauled himself up into its open rear cargo bay. Ignoring the pain lancing through his abdomen, he sealed the ship and headed for the cockpit. Jake's fingers flew across the console as he hijacked the ship's ignition sequence and fired up its engines. Alarms blared as he overrode the docking clamps, but he was already blasting out of the hangar, G-forces slamming him back in his seat. Ferengi patrol ships banked hard to pursue him, but Jake gunned the sublight engines to full power. The freighter juddered and groaned, never meant for this kind of acceleration, but it shot forward, rapidly leaving the Ferengi homeworld behind. Once in open space, Jake laid in a course for Earth and opened an encrypted comms channel. "This is Jake Brown, authorization code Fenrir Alpha 9, he said, voice cold and hard as steel. "The Ferengi have gone too far. They killed my daughter. I'm on my way. Activate the Cerberus Protocol. I say again, Cerberus Protocol is in effect." On Earth, sirens howled as the message was authenticated. At black sites around the globe, cryopods hissed open, releasing clouds of ancient vapor. Titanic forms within began to stir for the first time in centuries. These were the Fenrir, the last resort, created in desperation during the Gene Wars when humanity faced extinction. Each towered 20 feet tall on 6 massively muscled legs. Jagged spikes and plates of bulletproof chitin armored their bodies. Razor-sharp claws flexed on powerful limbs. Mandibles capable of shearing through tank armor clacked and dripped slaver. 1,000 of these apex predators, the most terrifying biological weapons ever engineered, shook off the ice of ages and emerged into the light. As they were loaded into massive dropships, a single terse message beamed out from Earth to the Ferengi government. One of your citizens murdered the daughter of a human family on your homeworld. This is an act of war. We are coming. Hell is coming with us. On Zalos Prime, the Ferengi High Command scoffed at the human transmission. What empty threats! Even if these backwater primates have a few oversized pets, our Star Armada numbers 10,000 ships. No bioweapon can stand against that, sneered Admiral Zek, his bejeweled fingers drumming on the console. The Ferengi media was abuzz with praise for Indus, the courageous patriot who put the filthy human in its place. Indus preened before the cameras, basking in his newfound celebrity. Let this be a lesson to any alien scum that dares challenge Ferengi supremacy, he crowed to raucous cheers. But the Ferengi's smug superiority evaporated in an instant when proximity alarms blared. 5,000 human warships, a fleet dwarfing anything the Ferengi had seen, dropped out of hyperspace in a blaze of Cherenkov radiation. Before the stunned Ferengi could react, the human armada opened fire, unleashing a storm of kinetic kill slugs and fusion beams. Zalos Prime's orbital defense platforms and picket ships were swept away like driftwood before a tsunami. The planetary shield flickered and died under the onslaught, leaving the Ferengi homeworld naked before the human onslaught. In the chaos, no one noticed the 1,000 meteors streaking down from the Earth fleet until it was too late. The objects slammed into the outskirts of Kaldis, sending up gouts of pulverized rock and soil. From the craters, monstrous shapes emerged, shaking off the rubble like dogs shedding water. The Fenrir had arrived. Each towering 20 feet tall on 6 massively muscled legs, the Fenrir were the ultimate killing machines, engineered for one purpose, to annihilate humanity's enemies. Jagged spines and plates of bulletproof chitin armored their barrel chests. Razor-sharp talons flexed on powerful limbs. Mandibles that could shear through tank armor clacked and dripped slaver. Throwing back their heads, the Fenrir let loose chilling howls that turned Ferengi blood to ice. Then, moving with terrifying speed, the monsters loped towards Kaldis, eating up the distance with impossible strides. The Ferengi planetary defense forces rallied to meet this new threat. Tanks and power-armored troopers took up positions, and the air filled with the whine of 1,000 plasma rifles charging to full power. The Fenrir hit the Ferengi lines like a meat grinder. Storms of plasma bolts spattered off the Fenrir's armored hides like rain. Massive claws tore hover tanks apart as if they were made of paper. Ferengi soldiers, their weapons useless, broke and ran as the Fenrir rampaged through their formations. But there was no escape. Faster than any creature that size had a right to be, the Fenrir ran down the fleeing Ferengi, crushing them in their jaws or disemboweling them with scything talons. Viscera sprayed, and Ferengi screams echoed as the monsters butchered them by the score. Holo drones recorded the slaughter, broadcasting it to every screen and projector on the planet. Ferengi across Zalos Prime watched in horror as their troops were reduced to bloody smears by the human abominations. As the Fenrir tore into Kaldis, ripping through buildings and eviscerating civilians, the Earth fleet broadcast another message, audio only. Do you see now the depths of humanity's wrath? Do you understand the price for slaughtering our young? This is only the beginning. We are coming for your homeworld. We will reduce your mighty Star Armada to drifting scrap. Your vaunted warriors will be chewed up and shat out by our Fenrir. Your great cities will be rubble and ash. And to the vermin named Indus, "You pathetic sack of shit who gunned down a 6-year-old girl. Jake Brown is coming for you. Start running, motherfucker. Start praying to whatever gods will still listen to Ferengi scum. Because there is nowhere in this universe you can hide from a father's vengeance." The stolen freighter shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Zalos system. Jake's finger stabbed down on the broadcast button. "Indus, you killed my daughter. I am coming for you. There is nowhere in this universe you can hide from me." Klaxons blared as the Ferengi Star Armada detected the unauthorized craft. Capital ships lumbered to intercept, while fighters streaked towards him. Jake wrenched the controls, sending the freighter into a screaming dive towards Zalos Prime. The ship bucked and juddered as it hit the upper atmosphere, friction turning the hull cherry red. Jake jinked and juked, throwing the ship into stomach-churning evasive maneuvers as the Ferengi closed in. Plasma bolts flashed past the canopy, barely missing. Warnings flashed across the control panel as the freighter's structural integrity strained under the extreme forces. Gritting his teeth, Jake skimmed along the very edge of the atmosphere, using the planet's gravity well to slingshot around, buying precious seconds. He scanned the terrain below, searching. There. The cluster of skyscrapers he recognized from Kaldis, the unmistakable stepped pyramid of the Purity Party headquarters. Jake aimed the freighter at the buildings and slammed the throttle to maximum. The engine screamed as the ship accelerated into a terminal velocity dive. The Ferengi pursuers, realizing his intentions, opened fire with everything they had. The freighter's rear shields collapsed and alarms shrieked as the hull began to buckle. At the last possible second, Jake blew the canopy and hit the eject button. Explosive bolts fired, launching him clear an instant before the freighter, trailing smoke and flames, slammed into the skyscraper cluster at full ramming speed. The collision was cataclysmic. The freighter crumpled like an accordion as it plowed into the buildings, its reactor going critical a millisecond later. A miniature sun bloomed as the headquarters complex disappeared in an incandescent fireball. The skyscrapers collapsed like a house of cards, thousands of tons of steel and concrete avalanching down in a roiling cloud of dust and debris. Jake's vac-suit thrusters flared, barely carrying him clear of the devastation. He hit the ground hard, rolling with the impact. His abdomen burned as the barely healed wound tore open again, blood seeping through the bandages. Forcing himself to his feet, Jake staggered towards the apocalyptic scene of destruction. The crashed skyscrapers, looking like the fist of an angry god, had smashed them flat. He activated his suit's chameleon mode, the reactive fabric shifting to match the ash-choked surroundings. Slinging the plasma rifle he'd scavenged from the freighter's locker, Jake limped into the dust-clogged streets, the hunt for Indus consuming his every thought. The Ferengi fanatic would pay for Lily's death. Jake would not stop until Indus lay dead at his feet, no matter what it took. Slipping wraith-like through the rubble, Jake methodically searched the blasted ruins of the Purity Party headquarters, the muzzle of his rifle leading the way. The towering Fenrir could be heard in the distance, their chilling howls and the screams of dying Ferengi spurring him on. Indus had to be close, and when Jake found him... As the blasted ruins of the Purity Party HQ smoldered, Indus scrambled through the rubble, blood oozing from a dozen cuts. His opulent robes were shredded, his face a mask of sheer terror. He had to get to the bunker. It was his only chance. Jake stalked after him, the pain of his torn stitches drowned out by pure seething rage. He moved through the destruction like a wraith, his plasma rifle spitting blue-white bolts that dropped any Ferengi foolish enough to cross his path. Their charred corpses littered his trail. Up ahead, Indus reached a hidden hatch and frantically punched in a code. The reinforced durasteel door slid open, and the Ferengi leader scuttled in like a cockroach, fleeing the light. Jake quickened his pace, boot crunching on shattered concrete. Almost there. Without warning, a plasma bolt seared from a collapsed building, catching Jake high in the chest. The impact spun him around and hurled him to the ground in a welter of blood. Through haze-filled eyes, he saw a Ferengi sniper ducking back into cover, a triumphant sneer on its face. Jake tried to rise but collapsed, his strength pouring out of the fist-sized hole in his torso. With a trembling hand, he fumbled at his vac suit's med panel, vision blurring. His fingers found the stim-shot injectors. This was going to suck. Jabbing the needles directly into his heart, Jake screamed as lightning raced through his veins. Agony and rage and raw primal power, his back arched as the chemicals supercharged his battered body. A blood-curdling war cry tore from his throat as he surged to his feet, suddenly more beast than man. Snatching up his rifle, Jake charged the bunker entrance. Any semblance of stealth or caution burned away by the stims howling in his blood. Ferengi guards at the blast door opened fire, but he barely felt the plasma bolts stitching across his body. Reaching the first alien, he swung his rifle like a club, caving in its skull with a sickening crunch. Then he was inside, a frenzied whirlwind of savagery, tearing through the bunker's defenders like a thresher through chaff. Ferengi died by the dozens, throats crushed, chests caved in, limbs torn off in showers of emerald blood. Jake was an unstoppable force of nature, his sole purpose to reach Indus and tear the life from him with his bare hands. Blasting into the command center, he found Indus cowering beneath a console, mewling and begging. Jake seized him by the scruff of the neck and hauled him up. The Ferengi's feet kicked feebly as he dangled in Jake's grip. "Please, mercy," Indus whimpered, voiding his bowels. Jake stared at him with eyes that were pits of pure, insane hatred. His finger tightened on the plasma rifle's trigger. The bolt hit Jake in the side of the head, flash-boiling his brain in his skull. He dropped in a boneless heap, his grip on Indus releasing as the light left his eyes forever. Maria stepped through the doorway, the barrel of her pistol smoking. Her face was a mask of grim satisfaction as she surveyed Jake's body. Striding forward, she grabbed Indus by the throat and hauled him close. "The Cerberus protocol was my idea, you piece of shit," she hissed through clenched teeth. Indus had a split second to goggle at her in shock before she jammed her gun under his chin and pulled the trigger. The top of the Ferengi's head dissolved in a spray of boiling brain matter. Tossing the corpse aside, Maria turned and marched back the way she had come, killing any surviving Ferengi she encountered with ruthless efficiency. As she emerged onto the surface, the terrible screech of more re-entry pods slamming into the planet filled the air. The bunker wall shook as the pods disgorged fresh waves of Fenrir to complete the raising of Zalos Prime. In the bunker's command center, a Purity Party holo recorder lay in the rubble, its lens cracked but functional. It had captured Maria's cold-blooded execution of Indus in perfect clarity. That footage would soon spread across the Ferengi Empire, breaking the back of their will to fight. Less than a day later, the Ferengi government unconditionally surrendered to Earth. They knew that humanity would stop at nothing to eradicate their entire civilization otherwise. The war was over. Humanity had won. In the decade that followed, a grief-hardened Maria rose through the ranks to become the supreme commander of Earth's military. She forged humanity's space forces into a ruthless instrument of war, capable of crushing any alien race that dared threaten her people again. But no matter how many worlds she conquered, how many alien fleets she reduced to ruins, the aching void in her soul remained. Each night, the faces of her murdered husband and daughter haunted her dreams, the family she had lost. Maria knew with a cold certainty that no victory could ever bring Jake and Lily back. But the galaxy would learn to fear humanity's wrath, and any alien who dared to make another human child an orphan would face the unrestrained fury of all mankind. Led by a woman with nothing left to lose, you have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.